In today's video, what I want to talk about is the main practice that I'm going to be teaching on this channel, which you can call meditation, right? I mean, meditation is the most common understood definition of what it is. But again, like spirituality, meditation is one of those ideas that has a lot of preconceived ideas associated with it. Everybody has their own understanding of what that means. If I say meditation to you, I guarantee as soon as a word hits your ears, you have this immediate assumption about what that means, right? Maybe you think of people sat in the lotus position with their fingers touching their thumbs, and it could be anything, like a kind of caricature of what the process actually is. Now, those are real practices, the whole lotus position, the whole sitting cross-legged and chanting. These are all just different forms of meditation. But unfortunately, when we approach any subject that has assumptions attached to it, we think we know what it is that we're talking about. And this can actually make the practice more complicated, as I found when I got into it initially. You approach meditation thinking that, oh, it's supposed to be about this, it's supposed to be about that. I'm meant to quiet my mind, silence my thoughts. And this, from my perspective, the silencing your thoughts idea is one of the biggest misconceptions with meditation. Now, I'm sure there are probably practices oriented towards silencing your thoughts, but anybody that's spent a great deal of time practicing meditation will know that any attempt to silence your thoughts creates one problem, one obvious problem, which is that by trying to not think, you're thinking don't think. Now, I want to just clarify, there are practices which do work for silencing the mind, silencing the internal dialogue. And if that's your focus, I guarantee you'll find a way. There is a number of different processes to do that. But what I'm teaching on this channel is an entirely different approach to meditation, one that doesn't require this attempt to silence your internal dialogue. Because if you go into the reason why people are trying to silence the mind, the answer is very simple. People want to silence their thoughts because of the peace and the clarity and the calm that brings them. Once your internal dialogue stops doing its endless internal monologue, once you stop having those eternal streams of thoughts and you have this silence inside, there's a stillness that happens. This kind of peace and calm and clarity comes over you. Now, the problem is that when people try to reach that through inner silence, through silencing their internal thoughts, it creates a state of resistance to thought. By trying to create this inner silence, you end up creating an aversion to thought itself. You create this internal friction between yourself and your thinking. And so you approach meditation and it's already complicated because you're seeing this natural stream of thinking as being somehow a negative thing that you need to resist or transcend. And you judge it. You judge your thoughts as being somehow a problem. Like, oh, the reason why I'm having an issue in life is because I can't stop thinking. While that is true to an extent, if you create resistance to what is causing the problem, you don't fix the problem. You simply create more disharmony with the problem itself. So if your discomfort is arising from overthinking, trying to resist that overthinking doesn't create peace. It creates tension, because the act of resisting your internal thoughts is an act of resistance. It's an act of struggle. It's an internal friction. You resist your internal state of resistance. You're already resisting the feelings that come up from the thoughts. But by resisting the thoughts themselves, you don't solve that problem. You simply add to the further resistance. You create even more discomfort. And then meditation becomes very, very difficult for most people because you've already approached it from this place of making it complicated. The whole thing becomes an uphill struggle. The simple path is the path that most people don't perceive or aren't even aware of in many cases. And that path is to do the opposite, right? Most people are so busy trying to silence the thoughts that they don't realize that that attempt to silence the thoughts is creating the suffering. It's like I explained in that first video, the first video I made on the channel, where the problem of life, the problem we experience as humans in life is that we are resisting where we are. We're resisting our current circumstances in favor of something else. And because we do this, we create suffering, we create disharmony, we create discontent. And then we spend our lives trying to resolve that problem that we created ourselves in the resisting of it. So it's no good trying to fix that by creating more suffering, more resistance. The path is simple, right? It's simple, but it's not easy. I really want to make that clear before we begin the practice, because if you approach it thinking it's simple, you're going to think it's easy. It's not easy. It takes practice. This is why it's daily practice. And what you do is this: instead of trying to silence your mind, instead of resisting that endless stream of thought, do the opposite. Don't resist the thinking, accept it. Simply spend the next 30 minutes or an hour or however long you're meditating for on this particular day. Spend that time becoming aware of your thoughts. Simply watch them. Notice that there's this endless stream within your mind, within the depths of your awareness, which is just constantly flowing. Endless things about what happened in the day, what might happen tomorrow, what happened yesterday, what happened 10 years ago sometimes, right? And, what will happen in 10 years, that can happen too. And what we do is we spend an endless amount of time thinking, right? You're never going to stop thinking. I mean, as I said, there are practices for that. But instead of trying to fight the thought, just notice it, just watch it and accept it. Practice letting the thought be. Don't engage with it. Don't resist it. Don't create friction with what is already causing you suffering. Just notice it, witness it, and see that the thoughts are not you. It's not your thoughts. You're not the thinker. You are the witness. You are noticing the thoughts. The thoughts are something that just arise. They come and go. They flow through you like a river, right? You're not creating the river. You're simply noticing that that's taking place. And then you just practice letting it be. You let the thoughts come and go. You notice what's happening. And what you find almost immediately when you do this is the suffering that you'd normally experience just dissipates, right? It begins to ease. It begins to settle down. You're no longer creating this internal friction between yourself and what you're thinking. You're not going with the thoughts. You're not following them to their conclusion, which in a lot of cases creates the suffering, right? Most people believe that they are their thoughts and they identify with them. So if you're thinking about what's going to happen tomorrow or what happened yesterday, you're identifying with them. You're following them through. You're allowing them to disturb your internal state because you're engaging with them. When you simply step back and witness them, you just notice that these are happenings. They're just happenings flowing within you, just things that are rising and falling within. And you're not engaging with them, so you don't feel the discomfort that would normally happen when you self-identify. And when you see them for what they are, which is just inner noise, just things happen. They just happen. They just flow. They're just taking place. But the suffering induced by either engaging with them or resisting them is no longer present. There's just things. And then it becomes really simple. The process of meditation. It's less about achieving, about becoming, about attaining, and far more about just allowing, just accepting, just being. That is literally the entire process of this spiritual journey that I'm teaching. The whole practice is what I call non-resistance. It's just accepting. Can you let your thoughts be? Can you let them arise and fall like they always have, like they always will? Can you just be present and accept it? Can you let them unfold? Or do you do the habitual thing, which is where your ego, which is trying to protect itself, resists this stream of thoughts? And this is where the ego comes back in again. I mean, if you think about the reason why you're thinking about the future or the past is because you're trying to protect yourself, right? You're worrying about something that may happen someday, maybe tomorrow, maybe in 10 years. Or you're thinking about something that happened yesterday or 10 years ago. Or 20, right? Maybe something that happened when you were a child, right? You're bringing these things back up. And one thing they do when you follow through with that, when your ego is trying to protect itself, is you disturb yourself. So just think about that for a second. Your ego, your mind, the part of you that wants to protect itself from suffering, which is always the reason why it does anything, is because it wants to protect itself from suffering, is thinking about something which causes it suffering. so it can protect itself from potential suffering. So you actually cause yourself to suffer in the attempt to protect yourself from suffering. You see what happens with that? You're trying to manage potentials, what may or may not happen or what did happen, so that you feel safe and so you don't suffer, but causing the very thing that you're trying to avoid, right? So it's like a self-fulfilling thing. But when you stop following through with that, when you stop trying to control, when you simply practice allowing and letting things be, letting your thoughts be, letting your feelings be, letting the moment be what it is, you realize that the suffering is caused by your approach to it, your relationship to it. You have this relationship dynamic between you and everything in your life. And what meditation is really about is about noticing that relationship dynamic, that it's either one of acceptance or one of rejection, what I call resistance. So you're either allowing or you're resisting everything in life, whether it's your job, your finances, your relationships with people, your health, fill in the blank. I mean, everybody's got different circumstances, right? But the one thing that you can say for sure is that your relationship to every one of those things in your lives is either one of acceptance and peace and ease, or resistance and suffering and struggle. And so meditation is a moment in the day. This is why I do it every morning and why I encourage you to make this a daily practice before you do things in the day. What meditation is teaching you, what you're teaching yourself through meditation, is that is what is happening, that I have a relationship to everything, that spirituality in its simplest form is just about noticing the relationship between myself and my experience. And within my awareness of that relationship is everything I need to know, right? Because if I'm resisting my thoughts, creating that internal conflict, I will carry that same suffering within myself, and I will carry that into my experience of life, right? That this internal state always gets carried into the world, right? Because the internal and the external are not separate things, right? You cannot feel something inside and not have it affect the world. Your presence, your proximity to everything that you experience is about relationship. So if I feel a struggle, internal suffering, and I go out into the world and interact with people, that same energy carries, right, through my presence. And through meditation, you're becoming aware of the unique situation that you're in as an individual, your unique relationship to all of the different aspects of your life, whether it be people, places, things, even yourself, right? Especially yourself. And through recognizing that that's what's happening, that I'm either resisting or I'm accepting, you have the path towards liberation, towards freedom, that you can free yourself from this endless game of trying to protect yourself simply by doing the opposite of what the ego is trying to convince you is the right thing to do, which is to control, to resist, to analyze everything in your life and try to protect yourself from it so that you don't suffer. And in so doing, creating your own suffering, which is how most people live. I mean, we all do it. Even though I practice this every day, there are moments where I get frustrated, I get reactive, I try to control. But there's a difference between the days that I've been doing the meditations and the days when I haven't. On the days that I do the meditation, when something arises, I am already in that state of non-resistance. So when the resistance arises, or would naturally arise when I'd normally react, because I'm already in a non-reactive state, I can see the reaction as it's about to happen. I feel the change in energy, right? The internal state feels like it's about to shift into resistance. You become very aware of it and you choose not to go with it. You say, okay, this is what's happening. I'd normally react here. And you say, I'm not going to do that today. So you just relax. So instead of reacting, which is your habitual programming, the natural relationship dynamic that you've created to the present moment, instead of reacting, you relax. And when you relax, you notice that the moment just becomes easy, becomes calm, becomes smooth. You don't create this internal friction and then carry it into your experience. You simply notice that normal habit of reacting and resisting, and then you relax instead. And this is what meditation is. It's not about silence in your mind, although, again, for some people that may be their path, but the path I'm teaching is a lot simpler. Instead of trying to silence your mind, instead of trying to arrive somewhere else or become or be or experience something else other than what you're experiencing to feel free and safe, which is why you want to achieve inner silence. Instead of doing that, just practice the opposite. Just practice accepting. Accept your disturbance. Accept your discomfort. Accept the thoughts as they arrive. Accept the feelings as they come up and go, oh, okay, so normally I'd be resisting this. Notice that. And then instead of resisting it, just allow it to be. If you're feeling tension, don't try to make yourself feel better. Don't try to achieve some kind of inner peace. That comes as a result of this. Just accept it, right? It's not about replacing your discomfort with comfort, right? That's the misconception that a lot of people have about meditation. They think that meditation is about replacing your state with something preferable. So if you're feeling stress, well, I want to feel peace, so then I'm going to meditate to feel peace. Don't do that, because when you do that, what you'll do is the same thing that's causing you the discomfort, which is you will attach to a preference. You will attach to some altered state other than what you're experiencing because you think that is going to make you feel better. Don't do that. Do the opposite. Accept it. And in the acceptance of the experience you're having, whether it be, peace or stress, accept both. Accept the stress just as much as you would accept the peace. If you can't, that's fine. Just practice this. The more you put the time in, the better you'll get. Like going to the gym. Nobody goes to the gym and lifts 50 kilo. You have to work up to that, right? So start with the small weights, right? Start with the basics. Just go in and get comfortable as you can. Just lie down, put some soft music on, and just notice the discomfort and stop trying to do something about it. That is the problem. That is entirely the problem right there, is that we all want to do something about our discomfort because we've been conditioned to think that life is about going after comfort and avoiding discomfort. And in the resisting of the discomfort, we endlessly experience that same discomfort because we never come into a place of peace. Peace is not about seeking peace. It's not some attained state of peace. It's not something that you achieve. It's what you become when you recognize that I am the reason why I don't experience it. It's what you become when you stop fighting your non-peace. Once you accept your discomfort, that's when you experience peace. It's not peace as a replacement of stress. It's peace in relation to your stress. You feel peaceful about stress. You feel peaceful about discomfort. You feel acceptant of what you normally couldn't accept, what you normally reject. You learn to come into harmony with the disharmony. And what happens is that disharmony transmutes into harmony, right? It changes into peace because you've made peace with it versus try to replace it. That's the way that most people operate. And this is why meditation is difficult. And this is why you're going to struggle in the first few stages of this, in the early days of this. Like when you first start practicing it, this is going to be the reason why it's hard. And it will still be hard in 10 years, which is how long I've been meditating for. It'll still be difficult, but you'll know why, and you'll have the necessary tools and knowledge to not make that a problem for yourself, right? It's just like going to the gym, it's still difficult to lift those weights 10 years on, but you get good at it. You know how to do it. You know the technique, you know the process. And with meditation, it's just a case of recognizing the one big pitfall that most people fall into, which is that they want to replace their suffering with peace. They want to replace their lack with abundance. They want to replace their loneliness with love. They want to replace their sickness with health. They want to, it's always about trying to replace the thing that we're resisting with the thing that we prefer. And if you approach meditation that way, you'll have the same problem that we all do. This is why nobody practices this, or very few people practice this, shall I say. Of course, people practice, but yeah, this is why most people struggle. This is why a lot of people that get into it end up giving up. The same reason why a lot of people start going to the gym and give up with that too. You have to commit to the practice, and it's not complicated. It's 30 minutes a day. For me, this is the amount of time I spend every morning. 30 minutes, an hour if I have enough time to practice just letting the moment be. 30 minutes of just acceptance, right? And it starts with just accepting whatever will happen. That simple. As soon as you start meditating, just let this meditation be whatever it is. It doesn't need to be anything else. It doesn't need to I don't need to have some mystical realization. I don't need to have some transcendental experience. I don't need to even feel better. I'm just letting it be what it is. And in the letting it be, in allowing this experience to be what it is, I release all of the resistance to what is. I release all of the tension, all of the projections that my ego has about what this is supposed to be. I let all of that go and I come straight into harmony with it. I feel myself like harmonize with it. I come into peace, and me and this present moment become one, right? That's one of the most clear signs that this is working, is that you feel that you and this present moment are one thing, right? You're not in the moment. You're not experiencing this moment. You are this moment, right? You and life are one thing. You're an expression of it. And so long as you spend your time resisting life, you will always feel separate from life, because you feel like there's a friction between you and the experience. That's what meditation is about letting go of. It's about transcending that friction, about releasing the resistance between you and the experience you're having. And once you release that, soon as you accept, you don't release it by pushing it away. You don't release it by trying to get rid of it. You release it by accepting. And as soon as you accept the present moment, everything becomes calm. Everything becomes still. There may still be disturbance. There may still be tension. You may still feel discomfort within your body, but you will be at peace with that. And the more you practice this, the more that peace starts to come up and release. You'll have days where you feel really stressed and anxious and resistant. And then you'll have days where you feel calm and peaceful, and like this energy flowing through you that's just really, really still. And you feel, that you're in harmony with the experience you're having. But the more you practice, the more you start to experience the harmony, not because you replaced the stress. Again, a really important point to make. Not because you're replacing the stress, but because you're learning to change the relationship you're having between yourself and stress itself. You're no longer resisting discomfort. You're accepting it. And in the releasing of resistance, you no longer feel the pain, right? It becomes calm. It's just an experience, and you're flowing with it. And it's a case of recognizing that you're going to keep attaching to that piece, right? This is the real problem with this, and this is why I'm pointing this out early on before we get further into these kind of discussions, is that you're always going to attach a preference to that state of calm, which is why it becomes so difficult. So the best thing you can do, just as I said in the previous video about the ego, is to notice it before it arises, to notice that there are going to be times where you've created a preference about what you think meditation should give you. And usually it comes from a good meditation, right? You've had some profound experience of peace and clarity. You feel the harmony and the ease and the flow. And then you create a preference of that. You say, that's what meditation's supposed to be. And it's not. If you do that, then the next time you try to meditate, it's going to be so much more difficult, because you'll try to replicate the previous experience that you've had in this experience, which is resistance to the experience you're having. If you're trying to make it anything other than what it is, if you're trying to feel anything other than what you feel, you're resisting what you feel, right? And that's what you're learning. This is the process. It's not about achieving inner peace. It's not about achieving some kind of mystical realization or clarity. It's not even about getting calm, right? It's just about acceptance. And whenever you reach that state of acceptance, everything becomes peaceful. Everything becomes calm. Everything becomes easy. You still experience days of stress, but you'll be okay with it, right? You'll be at peace with it. And then you carry that into life. Again, it's not about you. It's about what you bring to life. And if you're bringing resistance to the experience of life, then life is going to be difficult. This is what the whole purpose of meditation is really about. It's not so you can become a peaceful, enlightened being. It's so that when you go out into the world and experience the contrast of life, the adversity, the resistance, the struggle, which is a huge part of what life is about, right? It's not all, roses. It can be quite challenging. And what meditation is to teach you how to be okay with that, how to come into harmony with that, how to not resist. It's great if you can have a meditation and find that inner peace, but if you then go out into the world and you resist the first thing that you encounter after the meditation, then the whole thing has been pointless, right? You've just created a safe space that you can retreat into, and that's not the point. The point is how much you can practice acceptance, how much you can come into peace with what is and not resist it. So yeah, just don't resist. That's what it's about. Just accept. So if you made it this far in the video, again, as always, I'm very grateful for anyone that's taken the time to listen to this. And if you want to see more content like this, please consider liking and subscribing, and I will see you in the next one. So thanks for watching and have a great day.